Finally.
How about now?
Oh, look at that, man. I was telling him about how legendary you are on the court, man.
Oh man, that was a rough one tonight. I'm getting old, man. I'm almost 30 and I feel it.
It wasn't a non-contact injury, was it?
It was on a rebound and I went up for it and kind of tweaked it. I usually plan it out just right. So I end at 6:30. It takes like 15 minutes for me to walk back to the car and like 10 minutes to get home. That gives me 5 minutes. But it was a little bit slow going today because I couldn't walk as fast because my knee was not working properly. So apologies, everybody, but we're here now.
This is the level of dedication the man has. He could have just messaged me and been like, hey, could you set out a message to everyone and let them know that we'll have to start a little bit later than normal? But he got on his mobile device, hobbling along, basically like the Michael Jordan flu game. He was going to answer the questions while he was in pain trying to get back home. That's what you guys are getting with Storm Chaser coaching, FYI. A little behind the scenes look at what goes on here.
That's right. That's right.
All right, Trey. Let's go ahead and see if we have any questions at this point. If you did ask a question and I did not get to it or I missed it because the chat was coming fast and furious and I was trying to entertain everyone, dance monkey dance, trying to fill the time. So ask it again if I don't get to it. I promise we will get to it. And as I mentioned at the beginning, the people who have red in their names, those are going to be the folks who get priority on their questions. They are the Chaser Academy members, and they also get the on-demand version of this. We do these office hours every single week, sometimes multiple times per week. If you miss the live session, you don't get to watch it. It's gone, it's done, it's over. But if you're a Chaser Academy member, which you can become one by going to the channel list on the left-hand side of the screen over there, and clicking on the Chaser Academy channel, lots of details about what you get by becoming a Chaser Academy member. And like I said, one of them is you'll get these all on demand in the Chaser Academy. So, okay. Did I just kick you? No, Cassie. I moved you to the audience. I didn't kick you, though. Promise. Would never do that to you. I do see we have a Chaser Academy member, Radar Shark, who has raised their hand to ask a question. So... Oops. Or did they not? I think they might have retracted it. If you see a question before I do, Trey, go ahead and... Oh, okay. I see 2 hands go up here. So... Radar Shark, I'm inviting you on the stage.
Hello.
Hey, what's going on?
Did y'all realize that Enderlin happened on the 68th anniversary of the Fargo F5?
Yes. Quite the coincidence. North Dakota just seems to do it right on June 20th, it seems. So, yeah, that was quite a coincidence. Like, what, 40 miles apart? So that was that was quite the coincidence.
What do you know about that tornado, Trey?
Not much, really. I plan on doing a full breakdown on that at some point. I know that was one of Fujita's seminal works, was doing the damage for that, and he went ham on that damage survey. He interviewed people, he gathered all the photos and videos from that, and he that was really one of the first ones that he did that was the classic Fujita, drawing out the damage paths and stuff. So that kind of put him on the map, so to speak.
Very cool. And I do see we have a question from another Chaser Academy member, Kazaki. He says, when it comes to interpreting elevated mixed layers where moisture depth is shallow, or where moisture depth is shallow, I think, or in shallow, does that usually bring a concern regarding storm longevity? Moisture depth is shallow. Yeah, that's what he was asking.
I assume we're referring to the low-level moisture depth and the elevated mixed layer above it. When you have a strong elevated mixed layer and shallow low-level moisture, that is a little bit of a concern because that usually leads to some dry air entrainment. That elevated mixed layer is usually full of warm, dry air. So when you have those updrafts going up, if they're able to go up, that can mean there's quite a bit of dry air that they're ingesting. So that can lead to some problems unless you get some moistening or you have enough forcing to overcome that. But it's not an end-all be-all by any means. Usually those shallower moist layers we're finding are more they're more suited for those classic plains type setups. Those ones where you think of Oklahoma and you think of just classic Oklahoma, Kansas type stuff. The moist layers are not going to be those massive, deep moist layers. They're those shallower moist layers with a little bit of an elevated mix layer. A good example was May 19th last year, the Custer City day that went over toward Union City near in Yukon. It was a cyclic tornado producer. And if you look at the 0Z sounding from that, it was a pretty shallow moist layer. Not super shallow, but shallower than a typical, big time southeast setup or something, with a pretty stout elevated mix layer above it, stout cap above it. So, but it still was able to produce tornadoes. So it's not an end all be all, but it can give you some issues in the early stages of storm development if there's too much dry air for those updrafts to handle.
Trey, I see someone asking for a 1091 London tornado breakdown video. Do we have enough source material for that to happen someday?
That's going to be a no, unfortunately. Unless you can find me reanalysis data that goes back that far, then we can do it. I know actually Tom Grazoulis talks about it in the tornado book. I think he goes back that far, not with the science, but just listing all the historic tornadoes, and he goes back all that far. So maybe someday. We'll see.
Clint Vesey, I'm going to throw you up on the stage here. Go ahead and ask your question.
Hey, can y'all hear me?
Yep.
Alrighty. Appreciate it, y'all, for having me on. I had a question for Trey. Do you plan on doing a breakdown on May 18th?
Yep, that is in the works. So I'm doing end of April setups now. I'm going to do the Nebraska day on the 27th, the bust, quote unquote, on the 28th, and then we'll get to May 16th, and then May 18th. So it's shortly. Just keep an eye out for it in the next month or two, because it's close up to the top of the list.
All right, awesome. Yeah, because I'm absolutely I chased that day, and I'm absolutely fascinated in the similarities, that's just terrifyingly similarities between that and May 4th of 2007.
Yeah.
I never realized that on May 4th there was a Arnett tornado as well beforehand, and then just seeing the way the storms behaved and everything, it was just so freaking close.
It was and that's going to be a big part of the breakdown I have planned. I'm going to do a comparison to May 4th, 07, because it was very similar. I'm sure you've seen the re-timmer footage of Ellis County, that tornado that was the super intense drill bit. That was Arnett, and then you had some left splits move up, and then some new development up there by the Kansas-Oklahoma border that eventually became the Greensburg supercell. Kind of similar to how May 18th played out. But yeah, it was very similar. It just goes to show those low-level jet type setups you really have to watch for nighttime stuff. It can go just ham if the conditions are right.
Oh yeah. Oh, I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to seeing that.
Cool. Sounds good. Yeah. Keep an eye out for that soon.
Awesome. Thank you, sir.
Right. So next up, I see we have Ariz, Aariz. I hope I pronounced that correctly. Going to go ahead and invite you up on the stage, and you can ask Trey your question. Trey, are you able to hear?
No, I don't see them in the stage. I don't see them up by us there.
Yeah, I gave them a request to hop up on the stage. I don't know if they saw it or not. Looks like they actually just left the chat. Oh, man. That's not good. All right. Well, Trey, I'm going to throw a question at you here then while I'm digging for more stuff for our Chaser Academy members. Let's see. Question for tomorrow's setup. I'm looking to chase lots of places I could go. Good soundings in West Helena, Arkansas, and Covington, Tennessee. Could you give me a brief breakdown on where I might want to stage?
I mean, that's kind of up to your where you are located. I'll be completely honest. I think tomorrow looks like garbage. I'm just gonna come out and say it. I might do a live stream tomorrow morning, but I don't think tomorrow looks very good. I think if the chance for most robust stuff looks like it's going to be Central Tennessee, along the cold front, kind of late afternoon, early evening. But the instability is going to be weak. And but there should be a window for discrete storms up there. Just doesn't, what the instability profiles are pretty skinny, so that may lead to some less robust updrafts. The gamble might be kind of southeast Mississippi, southwest Alabama.
Hey, Steven, you got to mute yourself. There's a lot of background noise.
A lot of noise.
Yeah, you're fine. Sorry, Trey.
The gamble might be southeast Mississippi, southwest Alabama. Some of the models were kind of pinpointing stuff down there. The instability is better down there, but there is a little bit of warmer air aloft, so whether or not storms even can persist down there is a bit of a question. So it just kind of depends. If you want to take the gamble, I think if there's going to be a nice looking tornado tomorrow, it might be down in southeast Mississippi and southwest Alabama. But I think the biggest threat's going to be large hail tomorrow. And isolated large hail, maybe an isolated damaging wind gust or two. Just doesn't look overall like a great kind of setup. As far as Arkansas, that might be too far west. I haven't taken a look at the latest model data. I just looked quickly this morning. So I admit things may have shifted west a little bit, but it looked to me like kind of central Tennessee, west central to central Tennessee, far southern Kentucky would be your spot on the cold front, and then anything in the warm advection regime would be southeast Mississippi, southwest Alabama, it looks like. So it's up to you, kind of based on proximity. But if you're in Tennessee, I don't know if I would make the drive to gamble in Alabama, Mississippi. I might just stay up there, and vice versa. If you're down in Mississippi, I would kind of just play that target. I don't think this setup particularly is worth a long drive to get to position. But if you do go out, good luck. There's a chance for a brief tornado or two somewhere, so hopefully you can snag it.
All right. Well, I'm still searching for some questions from Chaser Academy members. We'll let some of the ones from the regular members through. So I do see that we have a hand raised here from Sanus Northeast Chaser. So if you want to go ahead and hop up there and ask your question real quick.
All right. So me and some friends were, of course, discussing Clarksville the other night. And we're coming up with some modified soundings about to try and and I heard a couple of theories were being bounced around in another one, and I was just trying to figure out what might have made more of what was more kind of the what was more like the what was kind of the biggest factor, because I saw there was kind of a thought saying that that the warm front changed the storm motion, and which boosted the SRH because of the change in the storm motion. But then there's also kind of you could of course pick up vorticity being generated at the boundary, and that could be another factor. I was trying to figure out what might have been kind of what was kind of the more of the driver there.
Are you referring to the March 2020 setup?
No, I'm referring to November 4th, 2022.
Oh, Texas. Oh,
yeah, Clarksville.
Yeah, that day. I mean, as far as that storm goes, that was closer. The stronger, so you kind of had an overlap. The strongest shear was north. The strongest instability was a little bit farther south. And I think right there on the Red River was kind of the best overlap of parameters when you had adequate instability all the way up into southeast Oklahoma. but your shear was just slightly stronger up there. It might have been closer to the warm front. I'd have to go take a look back at that exact setup to refresh my memory on the exact location of the surface features, but I know the shear was stronger north. I remember chasing that day, and we were kind of debating where to target, and we ended up going a little bit farther south just because it was a little bit better instability. Temperatures seemed a little bit too cool up there at first glance, so we decided to hedge a little bit farther south, and we got on the Emory Sulphur Springs tornado, but would have loved to have been up north too. So that, I'm not 100% sure, but I think the shear was just, the wind profiles were just a little bit stronger up there. And if I'd have to check if the warm front was up there, but if it latched onto the warm front, then that certainly would have been the case.
Sorry, I was muted there for a second. So the Hemolizer 3000, Jen Kushner. Hey, Jen, great to see you back here again today. She asked what the space weather channel is for. So Trey, if you just want to go ahead and break down exactly how to measure all the proton stuff and everything.
That is above my pay grade. I'm sorry. Do we have a space weather channel in here?
Yeah, so I actually added it today to the
cool.
forecasting and chasing. I figured with, I don't know how much of the situation you have been monitoring, but wasn't any singular event over the last 36 hours, 48 hours. That was rare, but there were a lot of like tiny little death by paper cut events that have all sort of combined together. So they're just going to bam, 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 be hitting the magnetosphere back to back to back to back to back. I think one of the CMEs actually coupled with the solar wind from the coronal hole that is facing the Earth right now. So I do think there's a pretty good chance that people are going to be able to see some awesome Aurora stuff the next couple of days. And so I figured we might as well throw an evergreen channel in there for space weather, since it's something that a lot of people do like to talk about.
Yeah, I follow some Aurora folks on social media, and I've been seeing that we had a big flare, and then we're going to get multiple hits, it looks like. I know we had a pretty nice show last night. But yeah, I like that. I hopefully at some point we can get some space weather modules on here too. I think that'd be cool. I know it's not really storm chasing per se, but I know a lot of weather folks do the Aurora stuff too. So that'd be cool. Yeah.
Are you familiar with, I want to make sure I pronounce his name correctly, or at least I say it correctly, Vincent Ledvina?
Yes, I follow him on social media, and I've gotten his kind of free beginner's guide or whatever to Aurora chasing, and I've read through that. So
that's who I have in mind. One day, I was actually thinking about it today because of all the activity that's been going on solar wise, that I would like to reach out to him. So I would normally never condone people rating somebody on social media, but since this is positive and it's like a good thing, if you guys want to all just like maybe comment on his most recent post and say, hey, you should work with Storm Chaser Coaching to do a space weather training module for them, that would be awesome, and we would appreciate it. Kind of prime the pump, so to speak, so that way he's conditioned and ready when I give him the sales pitch down the road.
Yeah, he's a perfect name for it. He's really good at what he does. So yeah, that'd be a perfect name. Do it.
All right, so Jen, hopefully that answers your question, and then hopefully, since you are a Chaser Academy member, when we do finally have that training module, you will be able to forecast the outer space regions just like you can the severe weather regions of the U.S. I'm going to throw Nicholas up on the stage while I'm looking for some more questions from our Chaser Academy members. So, Nicholas, you are good to go and ask Trey your question.
Hey, how's it going? Am I coming through just fine?
Yep. Loud and clear.
Thank you. I kind of had this written down as a message, but I figured it would be more fun to just like hop on stage. So I was taking interest in severe weather morning events like April 24th, 2010, the Yazoo City tornado, the November 2013 high risk, and I guess the May 22nd, 2008, like Windsor, Colorado tornado. I think that setup does look a little bit more unique compared to the first two. But in a general sense, I've been taking interest in like severe weather events that peak during the morning hours. Is it just like something that's just like unique is there like a unique pattern that those events have compared to like afternoon and evening events, or is it just like all the ingredients just happen to come together earlier in the day?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. Oftentimes, I mean, obviously, with those nighttime and morning events, the main limiting factor usually is instability. So you have to have something to overcome the instability. So in those morning events, usually it's something where, the timing of the trough is such that the morning is going to be the main time period, but you have that strong warm advection ongoing through the morning. You see it with a lot of southeast events. Storms get going usually in the morning. For March 15th this past year, the high risk day, you saw storms getting going very early in the morning out in eastern Louisiana, far eastern Arkansas, and move into western Mississippi. Those were tornadic in nature. And that's because the warm sector was already pretty much in place. You're not going to see that with a typical plains event where you need to destabilize quite a bit. And those events have the warm sector already in place. It's already destabilized. Usually you're dealing with a weaker cap as well. It's very easy to erode or has already almost fully eroded by the time storms go. Unlike a plains event where the cap holds on through much of the day and then you're getting afternoon development. Usually it's a weak cap, which can be a bad thing too for storms later on. They can get pretty messy pretty quickly. But it comes down to instability usually. Your instability is already in place and already more than adequate for tornadic supercells that time of day, as opposed to a typical event where you got to wait for the atmosphere to destabilize.
All right, so we've got Radar Shark asked to come up on the stage, has another question. So you are good to ask away again, my friend.
I'm not sure if this would sound like a silly question, but do y'all think they should add 5% hatched risks on the tornado outlooks?
So I just had lunch last week with Cameron Nixon. I'm sure you all know who Cameron is. And I got word that there's some stuff in the works set to come out early next year, perhaps by early February next year. It's, I think, already been floated out there what this is going to be. It's going to be the multiple hatchings. So double and triple hatchings based on the significance of and probabilities there. That is supposedly in testing now and going to be released. They hope by early next year. And that would include 5% hatches. They've done it in the past before with certain setups, but they don't use it quite often. But with this new system, that's going to be a little bit more intricate, a little bit more detailed, and in enumerating the threats and the significance of the threats. That's going to be part of this new system. So if it tests well and the experimental stuff is good, they're hoping to roll it out early next year, hopefully by February. So that should be something to look forward to.
Banglin says, so this spring we should do like a members only virtual storm chase. Leading up to the chase day, we'd read models with the instructor, show us what you're looking at and why, then what the models show when you start looking a few days out, and then like observations and stuff on the chase day. Is that something that's doable? So, Banglin, you have hacked our conversations. I don't know. Have you been like listening in? So we definitely have an idea to change the way live streaming is done, at least from an entertainment standpoint. Obviously, live streaming for awareness, which was what a lot of storm chasers do when they're being hired, especially by media companies. That'll probably, always be what it is. But I do think that there's a lot of room to improve the entertainment and educational factor of live streaming. And we would really like to explore that type of content. So I can't say exactly what it will look like and exactly when it will happen, but it is something that we're going to do at some point. It's going to be for Chaser Academy members only, obviously, because there's going to be a good amount of work that'll go into it. And it'll be somewhat similar to the Chase and Explain style episodes, but instead of it being like a really nicely packaged 30 to 45 minute video with, only the greatest hits, so to speak, it'll basically be either a day-long process or maybe even multi-day. We might actually have like forecast discussions the day before, leading up to the day before the day, that sort of thing. We'll have to flesh that out when we get there. But yes, we absolutely do plan on doing that down the road. And if you're not already a Chaser Academy member and you're kind of on the fence about it, just keep your ear to the ground, because maybe that's the thing that'll push you over the top and make you decide that you do want to become a member. So just stick around on Discord, follow us on Twitter, get signed up for our emails, and we will make sure we let everyone know once that is ready to happen. Okay, Greeny, New Jersey Slop Chaser. Question: can dry air on its own without a cap help filter out Crapvection? And if so, how much does that help?
Yeah, if you do have a little bit drier air aloft, that's going to help evaporate those tinier crap updrafts, and that can help things. Usually, that comes in the form of a cap. Usually, you're going to see a little bit of an inversion with that drier air, usually, because that's kind of what a cap is. It's warmer, drier air aloft. So usually you are going to see a little bit of inversion with that drier air, and that does help to eliminate Crapvection. We're learning that a cap is not always a terrible thing if it lingers into the setup. We've had a number of setups produce tornadoes when we've had a little bit of a lingering cap. Enderlin was a good example. The Custer City day last year, when the tornadoes near OKC were going on, you take a look at that 0Z sounding. There was a pretty stout cap in place, but it just doesn't matter. But those storms were very discreet, and that's partly because of the evaporation of all that Crapvection due to the drier air and a little bit of capping. It just chokes them off.
I think one of the biggest things that I've learned just from listening to folks like yourself and Cameron and everyone talking about this sort of stuff is that it's a lot more about this delicate balance between so many different things than it is about just one thing, this or that, flipping a switch. There is a cap, there isn't a cap. And so that makes a lot of sense when you say that sometimes even having a little bit of a cap can be a good thing, because maybe it balances out a bunch of other factors that we wouldn't have been able to piece together, and it makes it just perfect so that explosiveness can happen.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's not just, oh, we have cape, oh, we have shear. There's going to be big stuff. That just doesn't work that way. We've seen plenty of setups with minimal cape, minimal, or just barely adequate shear produce some great stuff, and we've had some extremely volatile parameter spaces not produce anything at all. So it is a very delicate balance, and there's so many more pieces to the puzzle than just cape and shear. Is there a little bit of capping? Is there 3 cape? How's that cape oriented in the vertical? Stuff like that. So it's definitely more than just cape shear. It's going to be big stuff. And all this research we've had in the last few years has really enlightened that for us, and we're only going to get better at it as we continue to get more research in that regard. You're muted.
I'm going to throw another one at you from Greeny here while I'm searching for more Academy member questions. They ask, can extreme ML cape really cause storms to basically shear themselves and start rotating, or do you still need a small amount of shear? And the example that comes to my mind is, I don't know if this is correct or not, but wasn't that like the profile on a day like the Plainfield tornado where there was just a crazy cape but not a lot of shear?
Right. You do need a source of shear, whether that's ambient shear. You can have all the cape in the world, but if you don't have shear, you're not going to get tornadic supercells, supercells in general. Now, the shear can come from different places. It can be, again, the background wind profile can be veering and strengthening with height enough to where you have ample deep layer shear. It can also come from a boundary, like the Plainfield case. You had massive cape. The ambient shear was very limited, especially in the low levels, but when the storms anchored to the boundary, they latched onto that enhanced low-level shear zone and were able to ingest that and the vorticity along the boundary into the vertical to aid in significant tornadogenesis. So you can have all the cape in the world, but if you don't have some source of shear, then you're not going to get supercells. You do need some shear. That can either be from the environment itself as a whole, or you can have it in a localized sense from a boundary, vorticity, ingestion, etc.
Pacer Academy member Sky Brothers says, I have a question. I recently got my license over the summer and I was thinking of locally chasing this spring. What are some tips for a new chaser and how should I start? And I'll just, before I throw it to you, Trey, say that you're already thinking in the right frame of mind. You're thinking of doing some local chasing first, which is exactly where we recommend people to first start.
Yeah. If hopefully you've checked out the Storm Chasing 101 course, because that's where I would tell anyone to start who's just kind of new into chasing. That's going to give you all the basics to at least get out there and be safe and successful. Maybe not chase the big stuff right away, but at least get you some good knowledge to where you can chase safely and successfully. But like Gabe said, going locally first is a good idea. I'm not sure where you live exactly, but start on the smaller, lower end days. Maybe even just a general thunderstorm day. Just see, can you forecast where those storms are going to happen, or a marginal low end day. Just go out there, and so you have a little bit more margin of error to work with. Practice on those lower end days if you can, and that should give you some experience to build up toward those bigger days. Then you can start taking steps up, baby steps up, once you get a little bit more comfortable with yourself. I would try to go with someone. If you're just doing it for the first time, it's always a good idea to go with somebody if you're new at it. That way they can focus on the driving, you can focus on the forecasting and navigating, and that's always going to help. Going solo right off the bat is definitely difficult. So if you can go with someone, do that. If not, then again, just try to start on those lower end days. Be as safe as you can. Don't get distracted. Have a plan before you go out. Make sure you have a good target, and always remember those escape routes too. Those lower end setups are good for practicing your navigation. So making sure you have good escape routes, using them if you have to. So yeah, you're off to the right foot. So just safety is number one, and make sure you have a well thought out plan both before and during the chase.
Mel asks, what do you think about CM1 and WRF? CM1 is what Dr. Lee Orff used for his research simulations, and WRF is used for climatology research and large-scale outbreak simulations.
Oh, I'll be honest, I'm not big into the modeling stuff. I really just don't, and that's not my area of expertise. There were a lot of much smarter people than I am at OU who do that kind of stuff day in and day out, so they would be the ones to ask for that. But I know Lee Orff's stuff is great. CM1 is really, his simulations on CM1 have really enlightened a lot of supercell behavior stuff that we didn't really know before. So it's been excellent for that, and I kind of just know it from that realm most of all, simulating supercells and the like. So that stuff's been great. The WRF, I definitely know it in the context of our models that we use kind of on a daily basis for severe weather. And they tend to do a decent job. They, of course, have their biases like all models, but they definitely do a decent job. So yeah, that's probably as far as I can speak on that. I don't know the inner workings of those models particularly well, really at all. That was something that a lot of other folks did at OU that I was not a part of. But I know for a severe weather sense, they've definitely helped us. Both of those have definitely helped us a lot.
Yeah, I actually had a podcast episode where I interviewed Dr. Lee Orff about 5 years ago or so. So I'm sure his research has come a long way since then. But I was absolutely fascinated by what he was uncovering with the Streamwise Vorticity current. Trey, before
Yeah.
we start to ask other people's questions here, if you actually could, for this is me asking you a question. I get to do that, by the way. When you're a co-founder and a part owner of the company, you can just choose to butt into the office hours if you like. What are your thoughts on the Streamwise Vorticity current? Do you have that same thought about how it can actually aid in tornado genesis, its importance? And then I'll also say, if you are listening right now, get your questions in. I'm going to cut them off at about 9:10. So as long as your question is in by 9:10 in the chat or you have your hand up, we will answer it. But after that, probably going to peace out so that way we're not here until midnight. Go, Trey. All you.
Yeah, the SVC is definitely something that has actually been observed visually before in supercells. We've seen several cases where we've actually visually seen what we think is a Streamwise Vorticity current. So it's a thing, and it's been observed in significant tornadic supercells. So I do think it is a critical part of tornadic supercells. And I'm sure we're going to get more and more research on that over the years, especially with I think some mobile radar stuff has sampled the Streamwise Vorticity current as well. So that's been great, and I'm sure we'll have more of those cases going forward.
All right, Radar Shark, I'm going to go ahead and put you back up on the stage. You are good to ask your question. Or perhaps I think they put their hand down. They faked me out. All right, Brownie, you are also a Chaser Academy member, so you're going to get priority access right up on the stage. Hop on up here, ask away.
Hello, before I ask my question, I just want to mention that the Academic Planning Committee at UNL voted 19 opposed, 9 in favor to get rid of the Earth and Atmospheric Science Department. However, they still have to give their recommendation to the Chancellor. But I don't know, I would just like to thank you once again, Trey. But my question is, do you guys plan on doing a winter module?
So first of all, that's good news about UNL. That's great news. Hopefully they can. It's a good step in the right direction. So that's very good to hear, and hopefully they can make a good recommendation to the board there. But I'm glad that was that happened. As far as winter modules, yes, we are getting through this first kind of year or so has been about getting the foundational stuff on there. We wanted to have the truly foundational stuff on in the academy first before we kind of branched out into more niche topics. So we've done, radar and weather models and stuff like that. We're going to be doing storm spotting coming up here for next month, and then we're going to do SQTs and then photographs for January and February. And that should be right about the end of our real foundational stuff that we want to have on. And then we're going to start branching out. So yes, we will be doing winter stuff eventually. Not sure when at this point, but it is definitely high on our list of stuff to do because we know it might not be as popular as severe weather stuff and severe weather chasing stuff, but we know there are a lot of people out there who enjoy chasing winter weather. So yes, we do plan on having winter modules eventually.
And I think the first one that we will definitely have, since it represents probably the most extreme of the winter weather, is lake effect. That tends to be one that a lot of people, even some of the generally severe only, like severe convective weather. Well, that is convective weather. Anyways, I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. You guys get what I'm saying. A lot of people who would generally only chase supercells out on the plains and hurricanes and stuff, they'll make their way over to Buffalo or Erie or Cleveland or whatever in that area to experience lake effect snow because it can be so prolific, and it's also a lot easier, from what I've heard from people, to forecast than trying to figure out where the snow is going to be, like on the backside of a big trough that's moving through.
Yep.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and pull Radar Shark back up on the stage. They are raising their hand. Another question.
Okay, so I have never seen a tornado before, and next year, me and my dad are supposed to go out storm chasing for like maybe 5 days. What are some things?
I cannot hear anything.
Hello?
Can you hear?
Is
now,
that
Trey?
better? Or is that too loud?
Radar Shark, if you wouldn't mind, could you hop out of the office hours and then just jump back in real quick? And then Trey should be able to hear you. I'll get you back up on the stage right away. All right, so let's try this now.
Hello?
Yep, got it now.
Okay,
Perfect.
Sorry. Sorry about that.
All good.
So I've never seen a tornado before, and next year I'm supposed to go out storm chasing for like maybe 4 or 5 days. What are some things y'all think I should try to do in order to achieve that goal?
That's a tough one. That's definitely a shorter amount of time, and we always tell our tour guests if you want a better chance of seeing stuff, you just have to be out there for longer. That's just kind of the nature of the beast. But I would if you're going to be out there for that short of a period, I would try to wait as long as you can before you decide on what period to do. Because you could pick a 5 day stretch, and that could be a very good chance that that could be within in between troughs, and you're just kind of shut down for that period. So I would try to wait as long as you can for that. But then obviously just working on the forecasting stuff and trying to be as detailed as possible in your forecast, since you have so few days out there to actually meet that goal. Trying to be as accurate as possible with your forecast is a good idea. So I would just study up, try to practice as much as you can. And I love the more mesoscale days, those outflow boundary days, dry line days. Those tend to be a little bit more reliable than your big outbreak days. Obviously, big outbreak days are great, but sometimes, most of the time, your best chase days overall are going to be on those lower end, more mesoscale days that you have an outflow boundary or something. So always keep an eye out for those. Just best of luck. And I hope you do see some good stuff. Like I said, it's a short period, but there you could eat just as easily as you can have a 5 day stretch that's shut down. You could easily have a 5 day stretch that's absolutely banging. So I would just wait as long as you can before you have to actually decide what days you're gonna pick.
All right. Kazaki asks, Chaser Academy member, by the way, how do you handle a day that looks perfect on paper but feels wrong in your gut? And I think every storm chaser has experienced that before.
Well, you just got to be there because good stuff can still happen, but every storm chaser has had something like that. You just have to go with the forecast, go with the data. The data never lies. And I've gone with my gut before and it's been right, but I've also gone with my gut and it's been wrong. So those are the days that I really try to make a really focused, detailed, accurate forecast. Those are the days that I will try to do a surface analysis and try to find any little thing that might sway me one way or the other. But yeah, those days are rough. But yeah, you just have to rely on the data as much as you can, the observed data as much as you can, and a lot of times those big days that look perfect don't end up producing. Those big high risk days don't end up doing much at all, at least from a chase perspective. So a lot of times the gut is right, but I always just try to rely on the data as much as I can and try to be as accurate as I can forecasting on those days.
All right. Next up, I'm going to connect Nicholas. You are going to come up on the stage. And just remember, if you have asked a question or raised your hand and other people have gone ahead of you, that's because they're Chaser Academy members. So we'll do our best to get to all the questions from people who are not members, but Chaser Academy takes precedence. That being said, Nicholas, you are up on the stage. Ask away, my friend.
Hello. This question is related to playing field, since you have talked about it a bit already. So my general understanding of how the playing field tornado formed is that it created an outflow boundary and then re-ingested it to create its rotation. I'm sure it's probably like a very simplified version, but I know it's incredibly rare to get violent tornadoes during the summer months or just from damaging wind and hail setups, but is it a more common occurrence, a more common interaction than I would expect, or was just cases like Roanoke and Plainfield just extreme with just extreme examples of that kind of storm interaction?
Yeah, it tends to be on the really extreme instability days. So Roanoke, Plainfield, Gerald was in a similar vein, not quite the same, but kind of in a similar vein. 6,000-7,000 Cape with a cold front in place, and then you had just storm propagation, some real storm scale stuff that helped that. But that was a real big instability day. So I always watch those really extreme instability days for any type of boundary shenanigans. I did see it in the Tahoka, Texas day, May 5th, 2019. That was kind of a similar case, and I actually mentioned that in my breakdown video on Plainfield, kind of compared it to that case. Because, like you said, what I think happened, just analyzing the radar data, and of course that we didn't have the nice high resolution radar back then like we have now, but the NWS up there did a kind of they revamped the radar data on a nicer grid and a little bit higher resolution, and it appears that it did latch on to its own outflow boundary. So I don't know. I can't speak to the actual number or percentage of occurrence that exact thing happens, but I have seen it, and it is a lot of times the real significant tornado cases are on those huge instability days. So always on those big instability days, I always look for boundaries because those can be, as we've seen, some real high end stuff.
Acronym asks, what do you look for in storm setups during the second season when there's usually lower dew points?
Really, it's kinematically driven in the cool season. I look for those big kinematic days. That's why this tomorrow's setup doesn't look all that great to me, at least as far as a traditional cold season setup goes, because the photographs, the wind profiles are just not all that impressive. When you have that lower instability, usually you're relying on those kinematics to help overcome the weaker instability, which is related to the lower dew points. So definitely the kinematics is probably the biggest thing. Just looking for the wind profiles, making sure you have those really impressive looking photographs. Those usually are the ones that are going to help overcome the lack of instability in the cool season.
Okay, and Storm Chaser Connor Overholser, I'm going to invite you up. I saw that you had your hand up earlier, so I'm going to go ahead, and I saw you just got another question in. I'm just going to go ahead and put you up on the stage since you were waiting earlier as well. So Connor, you are up.
Thank you for having me. I have a question for Trey. It's mainly about like storm chasing on winter storms. Because I know Arkansas, where I live, like there might be a greater chance for winter storms here. I just want to know if I can do it safely and like actually track it.
So I have never actually chased a winter storm myself, except just locally here around OKC. I am not a fan of the cold. This Arizona boy is not a fan of the cold and the snow and the ice. But I do have chaser friends who have chased it, and it's definitely a different animal than severe chasing. But it comes down to the same thing, and it's really safety on the roadways is my biggest thing with those, especially if you're dealing with ice. That is just you don't really want any part of the ice. You have to be so careful when you're out there. Really, even if you are very skilled at driving in winter weather, the people around you probably are not. I've seen some real ridiculous stuff here in Oklahoma and Texas for winter storms because people just don't know how to handle it. They can't drive in some sprinkles, let alone some heavy snow and ice. So just be extra careful. You can do it safely. Just be extra careful on the roads. If it is an ice type of deal, I would try to find a spot that you can set up shop and not have to move near a bridge that's expected to get icy, a highway ramp, an overpass that tends to get icy, and just try to set up shop there, and hopefully you get something from that. If it's snow, just be careful. It's not quite as dangerous. Hopefully in the big cities too, they've treated the roads. It's really my biggest thing with the winter storms is all about safety on the roads because people just don't know how to drive out there. So you're having, and we deal with it in severe too with the chaser convergence. But really it's difficult driving in winter weather conditions for most folks. So yeah, you can do it safely for sure, but just be extra careful on the roads.
What are the dew points like again tomorrow?
They are in the northern extent, it's less. So you have dew points in the 50s, and then down in Mississippi, Alabama, they're in the kind of the mid 60s.
So do you think if the dew points were like 6-7 degrees up on the northern end of the setup, that would be okay?
Yes, it would help, but our wind profiles just aren't that great, to be honest with you. It's not that classic kind of real honkin' photograph that you often see in big time cool season events. So I still think we'd have kind of a lower end setup. Storms would be more robust, probably a greater, larger hail and damaging wind threat. But I still think the tornado risk would be somewhat on the low side just because we don't have a lot of low level shear. The surface low is all the way up, way north, and we just don't have a very organized surface pattern. Surface winds are very weak across the risk area. So I still think it would be kind of a lower end event, but the storms would have a better chance of being robust. With the profiles tomorrow, it looks a little bit iffy if they can really become robust.
All right, chat. That is my contribution to this evening, getting Trey to inadvertently participate in brain rot. So Trey, you're familiar with the 6-7 meme, right?
Yeah, yes. I still don't know why people do it or what it is, but yeah, I'm familiar with
it. All right. Let's go ahead and pull Wyatt Marshall up on the stage. I know you've been waiting for a little while, so you are good to go ahead and ask your question, Wyatt.
Hey, that's okay. Can you guys hear me?
Yep.
All right, wonderful. That's all right. I'm okay with waiting a few minutes. I know we're at pretty much at the very end of office hours here, but glad to be up here. Trey or either of you, Gabe, you too, I'd just like to hear your thoughts or any knowledge on sea breeze tornado genesis. As a Florida chaser, my pulse storms zippering along boundaries are my bread and butter, and I've chased dozens, probably even hundreds of days. And I still haven't come across many notable anomalies on modeling outside of pure instability bombs that particularly aid in forecasting, say, favorable outflow boundary interactions. Would you say that phenomena comes down to more pure probability, or are there things that you would recommend looking at in particular? Additionally, are there any papers that you would know of that are knowledgeable on that subject?
That's a good question. I don't know of any papers off the top of my head. Let me check here. But yeah, so there's one simulated changes. Yeah, so there is actually a paper I just found, simulated changes in storm morphology associated with a sea breeze air mass. Hartigan et al. Hartigan et al. 2021. That might be something to watch. I don't know if it necessarily deals exactly with tornadic stuff, but that might be a deep dive into sea breeze stuff. But I would usually just treat those as outflow boundary days where you're just really focusing. I don't know if models are necessarily going to be all that awesome at depicting those. Those are really going to be like an outflow boundary day in the plains where you're really relying on observations there, really tracking that sea breeze boundary through the afternoon as much as you can, and then just trying to plant yourself right near that boundary. But yeah, that's a pretty reliable setup for some shenanigans out there, especially in Florida where you don't often have strong deep layer shear. Like we said before, if you can have as much instability as you want, but if you don't have a shear source, then you're kind of out of luck. So that sea breeze stuff can be really sneaky. There's been some good setups out there on the sea breeze stuff. So yeah, I would just say those days the models are probably not going to handle it all that well, and you're just really relying on radar data if you can see it on radar, and surface obs all throughout the afternoon. I've never forecasted or chased an actual sea breeze setup myself, but that's kind of how I would approach it, just kind of like an outflow boundary setup out here.
And I think Wyatt was asking if you could spell that again.
Yes, it's HARTIGAN. I can put the link actually in the chat.
Perfect.
To the paper. Again, I'm not sure if it actually involves tornadic stuff, but I do see in the abstract here it mentions supercells and stuff, and it's about morphology of the storm, so how the storms kind of evolve along a sea breeze boundary. So that might be a good starting point. I see another one here as well. Yeah, that one's probably too much. So the paper that I just put in the chat would probably be your best bet for a good start for sea breeze supercell stuff and morphology.
All right, so we've got two more questions here. Sanest Northeast Chaser, I know you've had your hand up for a while now, and then we will close it out with our very own Discord community manager, Anna. Apologize for putting baby in the corner, but you had to wait until the end, so just hang in there, and I know you're going to want to ask Trey about tomorrow's setup. She's super excited. She's heading out and chasing. She already said in chat she doesn't care what you said about tomorrow's setup. She's doing it anyways. So
You have to realize I'm a pessimist too. So
all right, Sanest Northeast Chaser, you are on the stage.
Okay, so everyone knows the joke that Oklahoma storms are the pickiest, and that like if you don't have like an absolutely perfect thermodynamic environment, it's just gonna die and nothing will happen. And meanwhile, you'll have like something that's like really stupid happen like halfway across the country. And this got me like thinking. And now in terms of like my ideas on tornado genesis, I'll just give you a heads up. Most of what I've read is like older stuff. I'm still kind of like held on to the idea of like RFD being a significant source of like vorticity during the tornado genesis process and all that stuff. And kind of a lot of the stuff and I just wanted to kind of run this by and what you think of this idea. And I was thinking about like stuff like I was thinking the original Vortex project and also kind of Vortex 2 to an extent. Most of their chases, most of their chases are all focused around the Central Plains. And I mean, I know with Vortex 2, they expanded that a lot more, and I know like their golden child Goshen was in fucking Wyoming. But then you have like but like I feel that I was thinking like if most of those theories and ideas came from analysis of those chases, of course, in the Central Plains, arguably like the most idealized environments versus like I feel like if you say like the more you go from that environment, processes for tornado genesis and things that can like make up for a less than perfect environment start to come into it like more and more. And that like and just because and I feel like observational studies need to pay more attention to those kinds of cases to see if like terrain or the kinds of setup can like play into like chances of tornado genesis more.
yeah, the problem is a lot of those field projects are based in the plains, so it's a big effort to get everybody to haul out to Tennessee or Kentucky if everyone's meeting in Norman. Just from my experience chasing with Howie at OU, we weren't on a field project, but of course we had Rax Pole, and you're also usually relying on students as well these days. And they have class through the middle of May, early to middle May. So that's another thing that's tough. So there's a lot of factors that dictate the domain of the project, which makes it tough. Like you said, I think we need the more studies, the more mobile radar data sets, and the more studies we have on these storms, we're going to enlighten it more. But it's tough. You also need the funding too, and this is not quite the time that severe weather seems to be a priority in the funding world, which is unfortunate. But yeah, there's a lot of modulating factors that tell these field projects where they're going to go and how aggressive they're going to be with chasing. Again, it's an armada of vehicles. You got a bunch of mobile radars, a bunch of probe vehicles, mobile mesonettes. You got to coordinate all that stuff. So you have to worry about expenses too. So you have to. So it's difficult getting somebody from Norman all the way up to North Dakota. Then if there's a setup in Texas the next day, that's just impossible. If you got to get out to Ohio from the Midwest or from the Central Plains, that's a tough one too. So I agree. And I think we will get more stuff on tornado genesis and stuff like that in the coming years. But it's tough with these field projects. We got to get them funded first. Yes, I agree with you. My take on tornado genesis is that I think it does depend on the environment. I don't think it's just top down or bottom up. I think both happen. and the difference is the environmental parameters. We just don't know what those environmental characteristics are yet that separate those. But that's kind of my take on that, just from what I've seen. So hopefully we can get some more stuff in the next couple decades on that, on that kind of tornado genesis stuff. But for now, it looks a little challenging. But that's kind of just my experience with that. And there's a lot of stuff that goes into those field projects that needs to be taken into account.
Bringing Anna up on the stage, our very own Discord community manager. Anna, it is your time to shine.
Oh boy. So, as I've said like a bajillion times, I am chasing tomorrow. I'm actually in Clarksville right now. Since that's kind of where I've been seeing like everything's kind of going to be either north or south. So I was like, yeah, I'll just go to Clarksville. I did drive 7.5 hours from Chicago to get here. So
Wow.
I better see something.
Impressive.
Wish casting is a valid form of forecasting. I was actually going to ask you about Saturday. What were you thinking on Saturday? Because I think there's going to be a Southern Illinois possible setup.
I'll be honest, I have not looked on Saturday, but I see the SPC Outlook, and they don't even have a general thunder there. So it may be a case where just the instability has been shunted by the cold front. Because I think that's what the initiating boundary is for tomorrow, is the cold front. So what may happen is that it's just going to shunt all the moisture into the southeast, and then you're kind of screwed anywhere north of that. Which that does mean that the better flow certainly is north, from what I saw. So if there's any leftover moisture, perhaps. But I think right now it looks like that the cold front might just shunt everything off to the south. I'm looking at the models right now real quick. I do see that trough kind of digging down. So if that's a decent looking trough. Let me see the dew points. Yeah, that's the problem. The GFS only has any type of instability getting up to southern Tennessee, which might be difficult for that. So if there for some reason is if moisture can get up farther north and remain farther north, then you might have a chance, because that trough does look pretty good. But for now, it looks a little tough, just lacking instability and moisture overall.
All right. Well, that was the final question. Jack Kelly, I do see your hand raised, but unfortunately that question got in after the deadline. But I'll make you a promise. If you show up for the office hours next week on Thursday, it's going to be with Ethan Moriarty. I will remember, and I will give you first question. Even though you, I believe, are not a Chaser Academy member, I will give you first question next week if you show up. Time and everything is in the events tab. There's also an upcoming events channel on the left-hand side. And then I want to give all of you a little homework assignment before we bounce out of here. When we were designing the Storm Chaser coaching website, we actually embedded a link, very, very tiny, like pixel-sized link to a blue lobster, which we, on our team, we refer to it as the Lober. It's kind of like an inside meme joke here at Storm Chaser Coaching. And it's somewhere on one of the pages to the website. So anybody who finds that is going to get a special reward. All you got to do is show us that you found it, like screen record or take a screenshot of the URL that pops up after you click it, and just let us know in like the support chat here on Discord, or you can send us something via the contact form. Hit us up on Twitter, whatever, and we will give you a reward. So you guys, that's your homework. Go have fun with that. And thank you all very much for joining us here on the office hours tonight. Trey,
Thanks, everybody.
Appreciate you with the Jordan flu game, coming out here with the injured knee.
No problem. Thanks, everybody.
See ya.
See ya.